Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Order! Order! I bring this Better Call Saul after show to order. Guys, thank you so much for joining us at AfterBuzz TV. All right, guys, stop it. Stop it. There are mics on the table.
Don't give us
You
toys
didn't
and
bring
expect us not to
the
play
apple
them.
pie.
All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for the AfterBuzz TV Better Call Saul after show. I'm your host, Zach Wilson. I'm excited to talk to you about tonight's episode, Amarillo. Oh, it's a Better Call Saul filled night. So I'm going to introduce my hosts. On the other side of the table, we got Stephen Lemieux.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux, StPhenLemieux. And don't forget Lacretia.
Of course, yeah. If you can spell my name right, it's LACRETIALYON. Find me anywhere because there's only one.
And I'm joining you this week for the first time. You can find me on Twitter at the Kevin J. Ellis or on Instagram at KevinEllis25. I'm happy to be here, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for letting me get on this panel.
Welcome, Kevin. We're excited to have you, and we're going to talk about some Amarillo, Texas, which we only spent 5 seconds in.
I know, I was so mad. I was like, oh.
It's like Fargo.
Before let me ask you guys, because Zach, you didn't see any of these ads in the week leading up to this episode.
I didn't. I don't know how.
But there was a huge ad campaign. Well, I guess you can't really call a week a huge ad campaign, but on Facebook, on Twitter, like all these places where you see the show, it showed a man dressed in white with the cowboy hat covering his face, leaning against the wall, and it says there's a new lawyer in town. And they really led you to believe there was like, oh, is this going to be some like guy that Saul has to like face off? Sorry, that Jimmy has to face off against, or whatnot? And you're like, could it be Jimmy? And it was just like, okay, it's Jimmy in a freaking Matlock basically costume.
That armadillo bolo tie just really completed the outfit.
I mean, it was last season that we got the true Matlock look.
Yeah.
This was just like, Southern lawyer come to talk to you about what problems you got and how to fix them.
It was a very good accent, by the way.
Yes,
it wasn't.
I practiced all day.
Just so you know, it wasn't.
Don't take this away from me,
Southern
Steven.
hospitality here. Southern hospitality.
All right, but so why he was down there is they need more representative or more clients rather. They're the representation. They need more clients for the Sandpiper case. And he is putting on the slickest show to get him. What do you guys think of this scene?
I liked it a lot because knowing what happens later in the episode, he knows that solicitation is bad. But he also knows that nobody's responding to the flyers that they're sending out
if
there.
They're even getting them.
So he tips the bus driver to get on the bus for 5 minutes. And what was amazing to me is when the bus driver says you got 5 minutes, in my mind I'm thinking like, what can he really do in 5 minutes? But then when you see him on the bus, I'm like looking at the TV and seeing how long this scene is. 2.5 minutes in, he's hooked everyone on the bus. I'm like, wow, this is like a lot can happen in those 5 minutes.
It's kind of brilliant, this scene, because as Chuck brings up, like solicitation for clients like this is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. But I think like he basically has a loophole here that this wouldn't qualify as solicitation.
It's people overhearing a conversation.
Yeah. He's all he's doing is talking to somebody who responded to their mailer. And some people happen to overhear nearby and ask him what he was talking about, and then he informed them.
Yeah.
What I love is that he always has a way of introducing a new type of hustle. And I think that this was just another example of that. And the one thing, like Kim and Chuck, they always continuously find ways to kind of nag at him and show him that he is just always sleazy. And he's always doing something, though, for the greater good. And that's what I like about this scene is that, you know that this might be wrong. You know that there's something ethnically questionable about it, but he's still doing it for the greater good.
It is definitely ethnically questionable.
Hey, it's his first show with us. Don't give him crap. He meant ethically.
Yeah.
Hey, it's called hazing, Steven.
You didn't bring a pie, so I'm not even dealing with you right now.
And you brought weapons.
Look,
so.
we're going to talk, when we get to shout-outs, there's going to be plenty of squat cobbler talk to go over. So just hold the fort down.
My luck! Had to give that to the person in the chat room.
Well, and I mean, Mike put it best when he's like, are you still morally flexible in the last episode? And I think that's the best way to describe Jimmy McGill, is he's morally flexible. Because let's face it, he's helping these old people out. What he's doing is right. It's just his methods are a little, I guess, technically wrong.
I like, though, that it's funny because as much as he's talking to the old people on the bus, he's also speaking to the audience to catch anyone up in this season that may have forgotten some details of what's going on at the Sandpiper. So when he's explaining everything, it's a really great metaphor and analogy to lay everything on the line, like, hey, you haven't seen this show in a year, so this is exactly what's going on. If you get a check at a restaurant and let's say they just charge you $100 for a steak when it's a $30 steak, you know what? Just call up your little nephew Steve, and he's going to talk to the nice manager, and the manager's going to take it off and give you a coupon for the next time you're at the Country Kitchen Buffet or whatever you want to call it. Well, just call me Steve. I'm going to be your nice little nephew who's going to go talk to the manager and get you your money back. So, I mean, it was a good tool of basically comparing the audience who forgets things to old people, but it was also kind of funny.
Well, and it seems so much more natural than when they try to do it in other things, especially when they're trying to like promote something or recap. This just seemed like, this is totally what's happening. But we're getting a recap for those people who might have forgotten. And then it was kind of painful to mention steak and be in Amarillo, Texas, without them going to the famous steakhouse where you get it. If you eat the 72-ounce steak, and this is literally the only thing there, by the way, you get it for free.
Well, it wasn't steak in the show.
Yeah,
he
said,
was just saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we only have so much.
Biscuits. It was something random.
$24 for biscuits, $38 for a roll of toilet paper. It's the same thing, right?
I mean, yeah, that's what it is. Biscuits taste like paper if you don't throw gravy on them.
And they would in Texas.
Let me just put this in perspective for why this is such a huge lawsuit and why Davis and Maine and Howard Hamlin are involved in such a thing like this and why so much manpower is going to it. Small things add up very quickly because you look at how there's 4 or 5 states involved in this. If one person at one of these homes monthly is being charged, let's say $150 on top of what they were doing. If their monthly charges are like $3,500 and maybe they're being charged $3,700. Let's say that there's 100 old people in each home and there's 30 homes in each state. That's like that's nearly $2,000, $20,000 per month times 30 times 4. Like they're taking home millions every single year that they should not be getting. So this is what a class action lawsuit is. Whenever you get one of those envelopes in the mail that say like, hey, if you were working for this company between this date and this date, you may be entitled to some compensation. It's lawyers trying to put together a case against these companies. And then if, let's say, instead of 100,000 people like come forward and claim and only like 100 people come forward, you get your share out of 100 people of what's left over. So that's why they want to make it as many people as possible so not too many people are getting everything, but at the same time it builds a better case.
Yeah. Well, when you have 1,000 people complaining, 2,000, it becomes like, oh wait, there's a problem here. Like when you get 3 people complaining, okay, 3 people are complaining. How could something this widespread only be 3 people? But when the entire community is up in arms about it, there's a problem. And that's what they're dealing with. That I want to further in the solicitation. I want to ask you guys what you think about Chuck's response to this, because the scene in Texas was great, but and then Chuck's scene where he's just clearly poking at Jimmy, like he knows that Jimmy is not the most ethical person, so he's gonna just dig at him and try to get him to slip. and he doesn't believe he got these things legally. What did you guys think?
I think Chuck's a dick, but at the same time, it's something you need. I think you have a huge case that's being put on the shoulders of somebody who has been morally gray in the past, and it's his brother that, you know what, as much as it's his brother, he knows his history. And the fact of the matter is, as much as we like Jimmy McGill, he was soliciting. He was doing something that could have the carpet be ripped out from under them in this case. If he kept doing it, it would have been very easy to prove. So as much as Chuck is a dick for antagonizing him in the room, any other person in that room could have pointed out the flaw in this. Any other person could have been like, okay, well, we have one person responding to this mail. How are you getting 25 people immediately without soliciting? And any other lawyer is going to pop up this question because the whole point of Koch's brothers, I think was the other firm that they said, the people who were countersuing, who were representing Sandpiper, said they will find this because their whole point is to tear apart the argument of the opposition. So you can't have a boat that has one hole in it. If that one hole is Jimmy, it's Chuck's job to make sure Jimmy doesn't screw this up. So to take a look at it again, you could also say that Chuck is not actively leaving his house and going through the pain of his mental illness to be outside for the sake of screwing over Jimmy. He's already been involved in this case. He's already done some of the man work by looking through the paper shreds. He's already invested. And this is such a huge class action lawsuit, and it's huge for Howard Hamlin, and it's huge for Davis and Maine. And if Jimmy is the one who makes it all fall through, that would look really terrible for Chuck. So Chuck's got to look out for his own name as well in this.
Yeah, he's got to protect his own legacy. And it just shows how much power Chuck really has within the firm. Like when he stuck his finger up to shut up Hamlin, it was fascinating. It was just like one of those moments where, Hamlin just turns on over to Jim and he's like, all right, I'm going to let this guy, tell me how it's going to be. And he's one of those characters. I love Hamlin because he really tries to believe in Jimmy, and he's like Kim in that he gives him more credit than is probably due. But Chuck is that guy. He's that another moral compass, just like Kim, for Jimmy, to where he's always berating him. He's always over his back, and you gotta wonder.
So do you guys think that Chuck is like doing? Was he right to call him out in this way at this time? Or should he have waited and sort of talked to Jimmy separately? Because he's calling him out effectively in front of everybody that works in the case. All of the most senior people at his firm and at HHM.
Well, and that to me shows that Chuck's motives aren't all pure either. Yes, while he doesn't want this case to fall apart, especially for this, because the burden of proof is on the prosecution, which is them. So any little detail, once the other firm decides to just dig in there, will destroy this case. I mean, so that to me is Chuck is trying to look out for this, but he also, the fact that he did it there, he does want to stick it to Jimmy.
I'm likely to agree from what I've seen. But I'd also love to disagree in the way that it would make Chuck just so much more of a three-dimensional character if he's doing it because he cares about Jimmy. Because if anyone at this table or watching has seen Whiplash, it's the same concept of pressure creates diamonds. And if you're going to be training to go to a debate against the best debater in the country, right? You don't want to be training with your friend who sucks at debating. You don't want to be. It'd be better to be called out and have your argument piece by piece completely torn apart in a meeting with your peers as opposed to in the court against lawyers with it on the record in front of a judge. So as much as it's a dick thing, it needs to happen because that's what Jimmy's either going to quit being a lawyer, in which case his brother was right, or he's going to only work harder, which he does, find a solution that's within the legal rights of the law, which he does, and find something that's actually going to make it so they won't have this case ripped out from under them, which he does. So he's rising to the occasion because his brother's pushing him. If he fell, then his brother would only be right in the end. If he doesn't fall, then it only means his brother's doing it out of the kindness of his heart.
Yeah, because to me, Jimmy needs Chuck to be pushing him. Because, like, even Kim pointed out, her and Howard were really sort of helping him, pushing him, went out on the limb. But they're not really that hard on him. He needs someone to push him and say, hey, look, this isn't right. That's not Kim, who just kind of will ignore it to an extent.
But Kim is also the one person that he actually looks at where he does not want to disappoint Kim more than anybody. And that's why when he actually was, nudging his foot next to her in the meeting, it was at that moment that he actually decided to change his mind and say, you know what, okay, I will no longer be going out into the field and I will continue to use the mailers. Obviously, he started to, he went with the commercial, which we'll talk about momentarily, but that was a moment where I was looking at Kim as his one true moral compass.
Yeah, because he always looks to her for approval.
Yeah.
But she moved her foot away after he gave his explanation, not before Chuck had called him out. It was after Chuck called him out and he explained and tried to butter over the thing, and that's the moment she knew that he had done exactly what Chuck was calling him out for.
However, though, but it was also that moment where Jimmy had argued back and had convinced the entire group that what he was doing was not solicitation.
But I'm saying she knows.
Of course she knows. Yeah.
And that's why I don't think she realized that he was being Slippin' Jimmy in this case until Chuck pointed out how easy it was to see, and because she knows, that's when she was like, he's still doing things like creating evidence. He's still doing things that could lose him his job here.
Of course.
I'm not going to play footsie with this person. My name's on the line.
Well, of course, but Chuck is the smartest man in the room, let's be real.
Yeah, I mean
he's the one that's going to find those methods to get at Jimmy.
Basically, what you're dealing with is that Jimmy is... Again, whether he was in the wrong is questionable and would be debated in court because he has a little loophole there, but it's a gray area, and he does it. I don't think he necessarily sees Ray as his moral compass, but he does want to impress Ray. He does, or sorry, Kim. I'm talking about the actress's name is Ray Seahorn.
Yeah.
We had an interview with her last season. You can go check it out. But she is who Jimmy he just wants to impress her more than anything else. He wants Kim to respect him, and I don't think he necessarily thinks he needs to pull it back, but he will for her.
True.
And then so that's when he's like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I've gotten caught. They don't like it, so I guess I need a new tactic. And that's when he comes up with the first of what we know, because we know where his life leads, will be the first of many commercials for Jimmy and or Saul Goodman, Saul McGill.
I'm kind of upset that we saw the commercial this episode.
Yeah.
Because we've seen openings to the show where it's Saul working at the Cinnabon and puts in a VHS tape and sees the commercial, right, and watches his old commercials. I think it would have been such a strong cliffhanger to have not seen the commercial, know that Davis is really pissed off at him for putting out a commercial that he hasn't seen, because at that point we'd connect with Davis because we wouldn't even know what the commercial was. We just knew it worked. And then the next episode we could open up with Saul Goodman in the future at the Cinnabon, puts in a VHS, and the first thing we see is the commercial, pan out from the commercial, and now you're in past time and you have all the partners watching the commercial.
Interesting. But the Cinnabon, like Gene's story, is something I think they're really just trying to keep at the tail or the head of the seasons.
Everything they do is smart and better than anything I could think of. As I look at this as a filmmaker, I would have loved to see that transition.
I totally see where you're going with that.
It would have been cool. This is one of the few shows that we do, because Steven and I do a number of shows here, and there are certain shows, I'm not going to name names, let's leave you off. But there are certain shows that have good storylines and tease certain things and just don't go the direction, and like what we think of seems to be more fun. It's never the case on this show.
Because we're cocky little bastards.
Yeah, we are cocky, and like, look, there's a number of reasons why you go a certain way, and like we don't always know where they're headed, and you take a left turn in order to go to some really cool place we never thought of. But this show,
Vince Gilligan's one of the few showrunners that anything I come up with is ultimately never going to be as good as what he thinks of.
Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould are doing an amazing job on this show to just keep you surprised at every turn, and it never feels like you're slogging. Like, this show doesn't feel slow. But when I went to like beat out this episode, like, okay, so what happened that we got to talk about? there wasn't a ton that happened, but I was engaged the whole time, and it didn't matter that there weren't a lot of events happening. It was still amazingly fun. It was still a great episode.
Can I just point out that every time they do a slow pan, that I'm just like, it's such a simple shot, but they just rest on it and makes it so artistic. Like, I get chills from the cinematography in this damn show. Like, the first scene of the episode is the blue going over the star, the white going into the red, then landing on. I'm like, I'm looking at a brick wall and I'm entertained. Like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, to me, that was just like, I want that above my bed, that picture. I was just like, whoa. I mean, especially being from Texas, I mean, it meant something to me, but I was just like, that is beautiful. Vince Gilligan, you beautiful bastard.
I mean, they have those the posters, the billboards that are all over LA are him walking on the street that's like tilted so it looks like he's going uphill. But if this show had like moved to Texas for a season, that's your freaking billboard.
But it's also that they have mastered the art of putting you and letting you know where you are without having to say it. Like, their locations show you exactly where you are without them needing some random montage or a skyline of LA to know you're in LA. There's something here that tells you you're in LA. You don't need a skyline of Texas and them to play country music and all that stuff. You know you're in Texas immediately when it pans out. You're like, I know where I am.
Yeah, we don't need a lower third or anything
Breaking
like that.
Bad kind of just put the yellow filter on and said, no, you're in Mexico.
But so going back to the commercial, because this was an awesome storyline. We got the two film students back from season
I
one.
think
We
they
don't have
should
a
have
dolly.
got
Dolly's
you two
extra.
to play them. Like, I was thinking Zach and Steven would have been perfect for this.
No, that was good casting. Because you always have the director is always weird. Like the DP is always like that weird guy who's always like looking at things from weird angles, and then
that sound guy with the long hair, because they all do.
super tall,
Literally.
like a guy who looks like he's held a boom for like the better half of his freaking teenage life.
Yeah, because his shoulders are hunched over. Every little detail.
But it's so brilliant the way they use the chair stepper or whatever it's called. The electric chair, the wall chair.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he comes in and he's like, we do one of those things where you move closer. A dolly.
We don't have a dolly.
Dolly's extra.
Dolly's extra. I see this bringing us $100. What's about the cash with you guys?
But it's true. Dollies are extra. I've had to rent dollies. They cost, you have to pay for them.
If there, this insider knowledge from living in LA and being in this industry and having filmed things before, it is not outside anyone's imagination that anything with wheels or anything that moves can turn into a dolly.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had to put a chair on a skateboard and weigh it down with a sandbag to make it smooth and have this hammer on top of it. You will
That is
do
innovation, my
anything,
friend.
anything to get a dolly shot if you don't have a dolly.
I was expecting wheelchair dolly.
Right?
But like, which is classic film student move. But like the stair one, like, you know how professional, like Kim even pointed out, like, this looks super professional.
He's like, I directed it. I love that.
That would work though. It would work.
Yeah.
As long as you have a smooth chair, as long as it's not like.
I mean, it's and it even works out, like, the composition because of it is great, because you get the staircase in the foreground, or the banner rather in the foreground, like breaking it up. It looks great. It looks great. And then his voiceover is just like, call now.
Yes.
What did you think of them bringing back the old lady from Alpine Shepherd Boy?
That was cute. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, if you're gonna have an old lady, if you're gonna have a couple film students to like do this, like, why not just bring back characters we've already met? It's more fun because you don't need to waste time setting up who we're talking about. This old woman, like, she already had funny character quirks with these like weird little toys. Like, we knew that. We didn't need to waste time like dealing with who is this person.
Remember, Alpine Shepherd Boy was the only episode last season that didn't end in O because it was called Jello.
Yeah, because
And
you
they couldn't
can't
use
just say Jello.
But that wasn't that the episode where he opens it up and you have Jimmy McGill's face on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, this show just such good callbacks.
Well, I just loved how passionate Jimmy was about making this commercial, and he was just so like a Scorsese type director, or Quentin Tarantino. He's like, they turned the heat off her, those bastards, and he's like, can you two assholes act like professionals, the parents that your parents are paying you to be? Just how passionate he was for this little 30-second spot. It was just so funny, and it's so Jimmy McGill.
What I really liked too was the fact that they showed the commercial that Maine and Davis had shown before.
Yeah.
Epic.
It had to be mesothelioma.
The law offices of James R. Sokolov. Call now if you have experiencing symptoms of pain in your lower back, lower abdomen, lower head, lower eyeball, lower crotch, lower leg, lower foot, lower knee, lower elbow, lower neck, lower head. Like,
It's just the dullest law ad. We've all seen those.
Partners really liked it.
Yeah, there were lots of meetings about the swirl in the background.
Oh, I know. And that's, I mean, this is
Yes.
what he gets his high from. He gets his high from being like a little creative, a little bit of innovation going along with it. And when you see like the fact that they had talked about that swirl in the partners meeting for as long as they did, you knew that Jimmy had to do whatever he could possible to just get this on the air because he did not want his own like creativity like bottled up.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, I think, what leads to him just doing it without going to
You have to realize though
his
that
boss.
in the world of lawyers, there are people called ambulance chasers, and anytime you see a commercial that's like the one Jimmy made, it's ambulance chasing. It's the people who find random people who want to sue somebody. It's the people who stub their toe on a wall in a Walmart and want to sue Walmart. So as much as this is for a specific purpose, any other firm, it just lowers the image of Maine and Davis so far down to your peddling lawyer
Well, that's
going
the
door
difference.
to door.
What Saul Goodman's communications are eventually, that's ambulance chasing.
Yeah.
Like this is just, it's an outreach for a specific case to try to get people to be aware that there's a case out there. Like I get emails sometimes about class action cases that I wound up being a part of just because I shopped at a certain like department store and like something they did was wrong, and so I get like $10 because something happened.
Yeah, the showmanship of Saul Goodman that we see later on, I didn't feel like it was present in this commercial. I thought that it was just really creative and that it was, well produced.
It was his Clerks, his first one.
Yeah, exactly. It was his Clerks. It was black and white.
Yeah,
It was-
artsy.
But sorry. Go ahead.
He's great in the way that him and Mike are people who get stuff done. Minutia tends to slow things down a lot in LA and a lot of industries, and like when you look at the first commercial with the swirl, we had lots of meetings about that swirl. That's so realistic. I am not even kidding. If you have somebody who doesn't know graphics or whatever and they want their exact image and then you're doing the work for them, you can go through 100, 200, 300 revisions before they find the thing they want. That necessarily doesn't even matter because then you can have a misspellation on the main thing because nobody cares. If you... Like, so many people worry about, like, I'm going to go buy the nicest bed, and they worry about it for, like, 8 years when it's like, you could literally buy lumber and make it. In a day. It could take you a day and you could have whatever you want. But no, people like to think on things. They like to overthink the simplistic. And Jimmy just gets it done.
And he's pressed on time, too, because if he's only getting one mailer response, I mean, he needs to show results. Otherwise, he's just going to get more heat from Chuck.
And he is the manager of the outreach program.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Stephen, what you were talking about, like, whenever you're pitching something to somebody, it's way easier if you can just show them something rather than let them deal with what they imagine the first thing that you say. Because if you have a vision of what it should look like, if you go to them with like, I got this rough idea, they're going to see what that rough idea should become and what they think it should become. And that's the image they're going to lock into. Like I deal with it all the time when I'm pitching projects around LA. Like you got to be real careful to like give them everything that you're going for up top, or they'll just put in what they think it should be. So the thing is, like, if he had just taken the commercial directly to Maine, was it Maine or Davis?
Davis.
It was Cliff Davis.
Cliff Davis. Okay, I knew it was
Ed
Cliff.
Begley Jr.
And I'm like, is it Cliff? Yeah, Ed Begley Jr. If he had taken it right to him, he may have gotten like less tweaks than if he had just pitched him the idea. That said, what do you guys think ultimately about? Was it a smart or dumb decision? And no talk about previews until we get past the spoiler wall. Just want to say that out loud. What do you guys think? Was it a good or bad decision to air the commercial without approval?
All things aside, I think it was a bad idea to lie to Kim. Whether he airs the commercial or not, I think lying to Kim was the biggest problem that he had in this moment, because the only person who's on his team and who could back him up in this situation, hypothetically, even though she's at a different law office, now is going to find out that he lied to her.
Yeah, because to me, it's the really heartbreaking part of that scene was when he does the fake phone call part of just talking to Cliff after he's already hung up and is really
it's Cliff
angry.
Maine. Sorry, it is Cliff Maine. I'm sorry, Ridiculous and Tenfold 74. I got him mixed up.
But yeah, and that to me is just like, it's like, why did you just lie to her? Had you told her, and she probably would have been like, that was a dumb move, Jimmy. You should have showed it first, but, you know, you'll talk your way out of it.
Well,
because it wasn't that big of a screw up.
We have a term here at AfterBuzz and here working with Kevin and Maria and all them, and it's called you got to get the toothpaste out of the tube. And what that means is there's an analogy where once the toothpaste's out of the tube, you can't put it back. It's the same concept as it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. You just get it done, and then if it doesn't work out, it didn't work out, but at least it's done, and then you can fix it. But if you wait 3 weeks before you even do anything, then you might even lose the chance to have it done at all. So get the toothpaste out of the tube.
I guess like if he shows the commercial as is to the partners, I don't see how they would see anything wrong with it. If it was like a showy commercial, like his Saul Goodman days, then I could see why he would be reluctant to actually present it to them. But I think it was a foolish decision on his part not to at least show it to the partners.
Yeah, because to me, Cliff just comes off as such a more of a chill guy than Chuck, so I was surprised that he didn't do it. But, he's still slipping Jimmy. He has to slip up.
He said, generally speaking, that he's for commercials. So it wasn't like he was against them. He didn't come out like hard line.
What he said was, yes, let's continue this discussion and talk about doing a commercial.
Next week.
Next week. And not go shoot one. And if he shot one and brought it in, I think he would have been applauded for initiative. Because, okay, you shot it. Great sample. Either they love it or they don't. It doesn't have to go outside the firm. But the fact that he aired it to the public is very much a fireable offense. That's going so far beyond what is reasonable. And we'll talk more about that. Do you guys have any more thoughts on the commercial? Because I want to make sure we get to Mike's storyline as well.
Do you think there's anything in the commercial that, aside from just imagery-wise of lowering Davis and Maine to doing those types of commercials, do you think there's anything that he did that's illegal in it?
In the commercial?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
So it is completely legit then?
Yeah. Totally.
Then it's
airing a commercial does not constitute solicitation.
Well, there you go.
There's nothing illegal that he did. That's not why I say it's a fireable offense. It's that he did something like
he represented the company without the approval.
Exactly.
Spending company funds and buying ad space.
He may have even spent his own money. I don't at this point, small market, I don't think it's about the money, because he probably has an expense account.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Just doing it in the first place, though, without the partners. Putting his Cliff's name on it, as he says in the phone call, is his firm's name without approval is a massive violation of trust and probably breach of contract. We don't know what his contract looks like, but I imagine it's in there. Of course.
All right, so before we get to Mike's storyline, the gunshots at Stacy's and the vet, and all of that, I want to do some shout-outs, because last week we challenged you guys to give us your best alternate names for Squat Cobbler, and my God, you did not disappoint.
Well, only your parents.
Oh man. So do you
have a list?
I have a bunch. First, I want to do the big thing up top, which is to thank you guys for doing iTunes reviews, because that's a great way to support the show, support the network, and you can just, all it takes is 5 seconds. Go onto iTunes, hit us with a rating and a review. I hope you hit us with 5 stars. If you do, you're gonna get a shout out on the show. So this week I want to shout out Rockstar2313. Who said, stop it? Who said, sorry, not you, Rockstar. Talking to my inappropriate panelists. Yes, it's inappropriate. Rockstar2313 says, I always loved listening to this after show. The alternative names for Squat Cobbler had me rolling. Keep up the good work. And now we have more alternate names for Squat Cobbler.
I think we need a low symphonic song for this.
I mean, I can just drop my voice a few octaves because as
That
Penfold 74.
That sounds less like smooth and more just like I'm gonna get mugged in the back of an alley.
You know, as Penfold 74.
All right, I don't think we're getting the music, so let's just go ahead and say it.
Sometimes you gotta give somebody the old chocolate peanut butter pie. I think that's sort of a reverse squat cobbler, if you will. Then you gotta get the Blumpkin pie. You know, if you're going strange with it. That old Kevin Hackett's got the old Black Forest cheek cake. Mark Cannon's got the upside down bum cake. Hey, you know, Mike and Cleve 66 on Twitter's got the Fruity Tooty Sticky Cabotie.
Oh man, that was good.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Oh my God! And oh, you people are disgusting. Disgusting. I also like those are the ones that we got, but I also want to give a shout out to people that comment on YouTube sometimes, because you guys can always go into the YouTube comments below. Make sure you hit us with a thumbs up in that little corner right there. It's another way to help us out. But also we do read and try to interact as much as we can throughout the week with you guys on YouTube. So go into the comments below. And Chris So Bright gave us some clarification from last week, and she says, as a webcam model, sitting on pie and cake and other food and reacting to it has been a fetish for a long time, guys. I promise you. So, we learn from the experts here at AfterBuzz TV.
I think she should Skype into one of our shows.
Yes.
No.
I am clearly in the wrong line of work.
We'll just do it without Zach's knowledge, and then Zach will be really upset with me.
Somehow, I think that's going to violate a bunch of YouTube policies. Well, actually... let's not test that boundary, though.
Needless to say, people can still have clothes on while they're doing this, Zach. Thank you.
Let's not test it. Just let's put that out there.
All right.
I'm still calling on the show to release a Daniel Walbert squat cobbler tape.
We need to see
I want to see it. Put it up.
I just want a Ben and Jerry's flavor called Squat Cobbler.
Oh, it's full of cream.
Vince and Peter actually imply that they were at some point in time going to release the video.
It's blackberry cobbler with chunks of fudge throughout.
Very excited for that.
I think I heard they said something on the Insider podcast.
Yeah.
You know, that other Better Call Saul podcast.
They don't get guests like we. Wait.
It's nothing but the showrunners and the producers and the staff. Like, all of them amazing. All of them just talking about everything about this show. So you can listen to that, but also to keep listening to us, because we give you the fan reactions.
There you go.
But okay, so let's talk about Mike in this episode, because Mike's got he's got a whole host of his own problems going on, mainly because his daughter-in-law, I think she's his daughter-in-law, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And his granddaughter, like, Stacy's hearing gunshots on a regular basis.
Pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
Around 2 a.m.
Maybe it's just someone really poor with a car that backfires.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot, like backfiring a ton. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I think the idea is that she would know what a gunshot sounds like as the wife of a cop. Like, she's been around guns enough. But Mike basically asserts, like, is she just not going crazy, but is she being paranoid?
Yeah.
What I loved about all of this Mike bit this episode is how much you saw he loves his family, his devotion to them. We start out, I mean, how many times do you see Mike smile in this series? In the first scene, we see him like laughing with his granddaughter. Yeah, I can't remember one time in this series, or even Breaking Bad, where he was actually smiling and laughing.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned he was laughing with his granddaughter. If we could pull up those pictures in a second. Because there's a big Breaking Bad, or it's not big, very small Breaking Bad reference, like hidden in this scene, because the pig that he gives to his granddaughter comes back in the 5th season of Breaking Bad. When he sees it, and you can see in this photo right
it's
here,
on the floor.
it's on the floor, and she's playing with it. And we jump to the next one. You can see he uses, this is the pig that he uses when he's like, one of his guys is trying to take him out. Like, kill him. And of course, but Mike uses it to trick him. Like, so like, that into thinking he's in front of the door.
It's the same pig. It rolls around the same way.
And it's just like, it's such a tiny little reference, but it's like, it's a cool callback.
Can I just say that with this
call forward,
with this storyline, it's really interesting to see the comparisons between Jimmy and Mike. Right now we have Mike, who, I mean, I'm assuming people have seen the episode, so we know that he's kind of playing to the delusions of his daughter, and she is so certain that it's gunshots, but he doesn't want to tell her that he was there last night. He doesn't want to tell her and make her feel like he's stalking them, make her feel uncomfortable. So he just gives in. He's like, look, okay, it was gunshots. Let's get you out of this house. It's going to be fine. We see the same thing with Jimmy. Jimmy's brother Chuck thinks that the electric waves are out to get him. Jimmy has physical proof that nothing is actually wrong with him. But you know what? He doesn't tell him that. He plays to it, and because he loves him, he'll let him live with it, and he'll compensate, and he'll do whatever it can to make him comfortable. And I think that's kind of a cool comparison between the two characters.
Yeah, and I've always felt that they were very similar in the fact that they are really good at heart. I mean, you see that most of their actions are to help other people, whether they be, you know, I guess morally flexible. It's just Saul, or Jimmy, he cares about Chuck and Kim, and even Howard to an extent, where he doesn't really want to disappoint them. And then you have, you know, Mike, who's got, you know, living up to his dead son's legacy with Stacy, and then her daughter. I mean, he just really goes out on a limb for them. I mean, that's the only reason he's doing these jobs anyway, is to take care of them.
But lest we forget that his son's... sorry, it's his daughter-in-law, not his daughter. His son was murdered by crooked cops. So she doesn't know that Mike's just taking care of them, or all of them. She knows that it's been dealt with, but she doesn't know that everyone involved is gone. So she has reason to think that her life could still be endangered by gunshots. She's afraid. Her husband was murdered by his teammate. I mean, she doesn't...
And she knows that she's getting a bunch of money coming in from Mike, and she doesn't know where that's coming from, and like what... She knows it's not on the up and up fully, but she's sort of not... She can't afford to ask questions about it, because she's a single mother, like, trying to support her kid and, like, live in this house and try to just live a life. So she needs all the help she can get. I think you're right. I think he's just like sort of giving in. Like, maybe there was a gunshot, but he sat there all night. She said she heard gunshots, and he knows
it's the paper
that she didn't. Yeah.
It's
well, that's what he sees. There's no way that she heard that as like the gunshots.
I mean, I'm thinking that she's seeing the money come in. She might just be wanting to use him in a way to maybe get a nicer house and a better neighborhood. I'm not seeing like delusions. I'm not seeing the fact that she might actually be hearing these. I'm seeing somebody who's trying to manipulate the situation and manipulate Mike.
I want to counter that and say that you're wrong.
Okay. Why?
because they're so good at writing three-dimensional characters and characters that obey their history. And this is a woman who had a husband and a daughter with that husband of several years, and she's not used to sleeping alone in a house without anyone next to her. She's still not sleeping because she's afraid because her husband was murdered. And you ever been alone as a kid in your room, and any sound that you hear, you magnify it to the 10th degree of whatever it could have been? It's not that it was just papers hitting the ground. It's that she's in a constant state of fear. So when she hears a paper hit the ground, it doesn't matter that you and I or anyone else could piece that apart and be like, oh, it must be a paper or it must be something else. She is automatically going to the gunshot to the point that she's probably actually hearing gunshots. So she is just... I don't believe that she would play Mike like that because she doesn't like Mike that much.
Yeah, and real quick, we got to move on because we're running low on time, and we got to talk about that moment at the end where Mike takes a job from the vet, he's like, this might be morally questionable. We all know, like, from like watching Mike over the years, like he has certain standards.
Was I the only one expecting Gustavo Fring to be the one standing there?
Yes.
No, I mean, I was like going back and forth, like it's either Nacho or Tuco.
Oh yeah,
and
I thought it was Tuco
like,
for a
I don't know if
second,
it's gonna be Tuco. The shoes made me think Tuco for a moment. Like I had said Nacho before, and then the shoes, I was like, is that Tuco?
But
no,
wish
it's
it was Gus.
it's Nacho.
Yeah.
It's Nacho. Craziness. Real quick, what do you guys think? What do you think? Well, here's what I need to know. What do you think is up with Nacho? Because he needs Mike's help.
Well, he's not going to be taking out Tuco. That we know.
Well, it doesn't mean he's not going to try.
Doesn't mean he's
Nacho's
not going
not
to try.
around in Breaking Bad.
But Nacho, I would at least think that he would be a series regular for this season. So I'm going to say that he's going to at least make it to episode 10 and not actually get knocked off quick. And Tuco's the kind of guy that would exact revenge right away if he could. So I don't know. I don't see him going after Tuco.
Yeah, I actually feel like Nacho is kind of like worried that Tuco might be figuring out his side business. I don't know if he's necessarily going after him, but he's looking to Mike for protection from Tuco because he might be sniffing around. Because there has been a lot of like screw ups with Nacho recently.
What do you think?
I think there's probably a rival. I think there's actually a rival, some sort of rival gang or just dealer who's trying to take out Nacho via Tuco. And it's like, so it's it's like a double thing where it's like an outside force that's going to have to be stopped to prevent Tuco from finding out. So that Nacho becomes this like pariah from everyone.
I think Nacho's the person that Nacho wants to make disappear.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I think Tuco found out, but I don't think Nacho's ballsy enough to take out Tuco. I think Nacho's like, I need to get out of the line of sight of Tuco. I think Nacho needs to disappear. And I think this will cause Mike to come to blows with Tuco. Because if Tuco's looking for Nacho and Mike's hiding Nacho, because Mike won't take a hit order right now, but you see him. I guess we're in spoiler territory now. If we're going,
let's. Why don't we move into predictions real quick, and we'll talk. We'll open the spoiler wall towards what we saw in the preview.
So we see Mike buying a sniper rifle. I just don't see Mike taking a hit order. I just don't see it yet. He hasn't descended to that yet. So if I'm to look at this reasonably, I'd say that Nacho wants to hide from Tuco. Mike knows that Tuco's very violent, and Tuco finds out somehow where Nacho is, and Mike has to defend himself. So he needs hardware to do that with.
Yeah. I'd say that stands to reason. I think that's a good prediction.
Yeah, he should have just made another pimento cheese sandwich.
Abuelita! No, Abuelita!
There's so much.
Nobody calls Abuelita biznatch!
All right, calm down, Steve.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, we got a lot going for. I think this is where we're going to see Mike start to evolve into the guy who has he has guys that he has like a team of people who still follow a certain code, but are willing to kill when need to be killed. He needs money. He needs money to support his granddaughter. For Mike, it's all about his granddaughter and making sure she can live the good life that he never got to give him or his son at the end of the day. Any other big predictions, guys, or favorite moments from this episode?
I did love the big bowl of balls and that whole little, cute couple moment between Kim and Jimmy. Yeah, I was like, because literally every corporate apartment you've ever seen does have a big bowl of balls.
Yeah.
For some reason.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm looking forward to Mike coming out, and I think the actor who played him, Jonathan Banks. Thank you. Jonathan came out and said, in one word, what are you going to say to describe the season? And he said, violence. With his
Yes.
So I am excited going forward.
God, we're so American. Violence!
Yes!
Do it!
Yeah, I think one of the moments we didn't get to talk about, just like when Jimmy's waiting for the phone. I loved how they used the exact same shots, the exact same hand motions of doing this to the phone, waiting for it to ring, and ring. As we got in season 1, when he was waiting for anything to happen on his crappy click voicemail phone, and now we got this awesome 10-line digital insanity.
I just imagine the people at Sandpiper typing in the number.
But it's interesting. Every single time that we actually
we get it, Steven.
God.
It's not gonna stop. All right, I'm gonna stop you there.
Hello, Davison, Maine. How may I direct your call?
Stop you there because I think we're out of time, and so I want to thank you guys for joining us here at AfterBuzz TV's Better Call Saul After Show. I know we didn't necessarily get to every scene, so if you have anything else that we didn't get to that you really want to talk about, hit us in the YouTube comments below or on iTunes in the reviews. You can just tell us what your favorite moment of the episode was, or like what thing you loved that you're looking forward to seeing next time. I mean, I think in the preview we heard the quote, "There's a 2-to-1 vote to fire you for cause," and I'm so excited to see what that means, because I think Maine's gonna basically be like, "But I'm keeping you," because that was pretty good at, and it worked. But you're on thin ice. You're on thin ice, audience. If you don't tune in next week. No, I'm just kidding. We love you guys. All right, until next week, Stephen Lemieux. Where can
Hey guys,
find
find
you?
me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux, STPHENLEMIUX.
Hey guys, spell my name right. It's LACRETIALYON, and there's only one, so you'll find me.
At the Kevin James Ellis on Twitter and Kevin Ellis 25 on Instagram. Thank you guys.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube at @ZachWilson, THATZACHWILSON. And also here at AfterBuzz on a whole bunch of shows, including tonight, the Agent Carter season finale. And I did a Daredevil trailer breakdown with the Daredevil crew over the weekend. It was a blast. We did a lot. There's a lot of fun Easter eggs that we found. So you can check that out on AfterBuzz's website, guys. Until next week, I'm Zach Wilson. And thanks for geeking out with us.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Better call you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.